The entire room went silent. You could hear a pin drop on the carpeted floor of New York's most exclusive restaurant. Joy, a shy 22-year-old waitress who usually tried to blend into the wallpaper, had just poured wine for the most dangerous man on the East Coast, Don Moretti. She thought she was being polite. She thought she was just using an old phrase her grandmother taught her to show respect. But when those 4 words of an extinct Sicilian dialect left her lips, the Don's glass shattered in his hand, and every bodyguard in the room unholstered their weapon. She didn't know it yet, but she hadn't just greeted a customer. She had just resurrected a 50-year-old blood feud. This is the story of the shy waitress who accidentally declared war. The rain battered against the reinforced glass windows of Luasi, a sound that usually comforted Joy Vance. Tonight, however, it sounded like a warning. Luasi wasn't just a restaurant. It was neutral ground. It was the Switzerland of the New York underworld, a place where business was conducted over truffles worth more than Joy's annual rent and wine bottles, covered in dust from the Second World War. As a junior server, Joy was usually relegated to the back sections, handling the tourists who managed to get a reservation or the minor celebrities who tipped poorly. But tonight, the roster had changed. Vance, the manager, Mr. Henderson, hissed, snapping his fingers in front of her face. His forehead was slick with sweat, despite the air conditioning being set to a crisp 68 degrees. Marco is out. Sick. Panic attack. Doesn't matter. I need you on table 1. Joy felt the blood drain from her face. Mr. Henderson, I can't. Table 1 it's them. I don't have anyone else who speaks Italian, Joy. You told me on your application your grandmother raised you speaking it. Do you want this job or not? Joy tightened her grip on the serving tray. She needed this job. Her grandmother's medical bills were piling up on the kitchen counter of their cramped Queens apartment, menacing white envelopes that threatened eviction and despair. I'll do it, she whispered. Good, they're here. The atmosphere in the restaurant shifted instantly. It wasn't a noise. It was a pressure change. The air grew heavier. Conversation at other tables died down, replaced by frantic, hushed whispers. Through the heavy oak double doors walked 3 men. First came the security. Men with necks as thick as tree trunks, scanning the room with predatory eyes. Then came Enzo Moretti. Joy had seen him in the tabloids, usually blurred out or photographed from a distance. Up close, he was devastating. He wore a charcoal suit that fit his broad shoulders like a second skin. His hair was dark, swept back, and his eyes were the color of cold espresso. He didn't look at anyone. He moved with the lethal grace of a panther patrolling its territory. He was 32, the underboss, the prince of the city. And behind him, leaning heavily on a cane topped with a silver wolf's head, was Don Moretti, the capo di tutti I capi, the boss of bosses. He was in his 60s, his face a roadmap of scars and hard decisions. Legend said he hadn't smiled since 1998. Joy felt her knees trembling. She smoothed her skirt, took a deep breath, and walked toward the semi-private alcove known as Table 1. The bodyguards stopped her 3 feet from the table. One of them, a massive man named Luca, held up a hand. He patted her down quickly, professionally, checking for wires or weapons. Enzo watched the process with bored disinterest, swirling his water glass. She's clean, Luca grunted, stepping aside. Joy stepped into the lion's den. Good evening, gentlemen, she said, her voice shaking slightly. My name is Joy. I'll be taking care of you tonight. Don Salvatore didn't look up. He was staring at the menu as if it were a death warrant. Enzo, however, glanced at her. For a second, his dark eyes lingered on her face, noting the paleness of her skin and the terrified flutter of her pulse in her neck. The 82 Barolo, Enzo said, his voice deep and rough like gravel crunching under tires. And open it here, don't take it to the decanting station. Of course, sir. Joy fetched the bottle, her hands trembling as she presented the label. She worked the corkscrew, terrified of breaking the cork, A broken cork on table 1 was a fireable offense. Or worse, pop, a clean pull. She exhaled a silent prayer. She poured a splash for the Don to taste. Salvatore lifted the glass, swirled it, and took a sip. He nodded once. Permission granted. Joy moved around the table to fill the glasses. As she poured for the Don, she noticed his hand was resting on the tablecloth. On his pinky ring was a crest she recognized. Not from the news, but from the old, tattered photo album her Nana kept hidden under the floorboards. A wave of nostalgia hit her. She forgot the danger. She forgot Mr. Henderson watching her like a hawk from the kitchen door. She just saw an old man who reminded her of the stories her grandmother told her about the old country. Without thinking, as she finished pouring, the words slipped out. It wasn't standard Italian. It wasn't even standard Sicilian. It was a hyper-specific dialect from the mountain village of Corleone, a phrasing used by the families of the 1940s to denote a host of high honor. Voscenza benedicit Don Salvatore, lusuli si cuccan da casa di l'onuri. Blessings, Your Excellency, the sun sets in the house of honor. The reaction was instantaneous and terrifying. Don Salvatore's hand jerked. The crystal wine glass shattered in his grip, spraying the priceless red vintage all over the white tablecloth like a gunshot wound. Click-clack. Every bodyguard in the alcove had a gun drawn and aimed at Joy's head before the wine even hit the floor. Joy froze, the empty bottle clutched to her chest. She couldn't breathe. She stared down the barrel of Luca's silencer. "Don't move!" Luca screamed. The entire restaurant had gone dead silent. Forks hovered halfway to mouths. Mr. Henderson had fainted by the kitchen door. Enzo was on his feet in a split second, his own gun drawn, but he wasn't aiming at Joy. He was aiming at the room, shielding his father. But when he saw his father's face, he hesitated. Don Salvatore wasn't looking at the bodyguards. He was staring at Joy. His face, usually a mask of stone, was pale. His lips were trembling. "Where?" The Don's voice was a rasp, a broken sound. "Where did you hear that tongue?" Joy couldn't speak. She was hyperventilating. "Speak!" Enzo barked, stepping between the bodyguards and Joy, pushing Luca's gun down. "Father, are you hit?" "I am not hit!" Salvatore roared, slamming his bleeding hand onto the table, ignoring the glass shards embedded in his palm. He pointed a shaking finger at Joy. "That dialect, that specific greeting, no one has spoken the lingua di ombre, language of shadows, in 20 years. The last people who knew it were the Cusanos." The name sucked the air out of the room. The Cusanos were the Morettis, greatest rivals, a family supposedly wiped off the face of the earth during the Night of Long Knives 2 decades ago. Enzo turned to Joy, his eyes narrowing. The boredom was gone. Now he looked at her like she was a puzzle he had to solve, or a bomb he had to defuse. "Who are you?" Enzo demanded, stepping closer. He towered over her, smelling of gunpowder and expensive cologne. "Who sent you?" "And no one," Joy squeaked, tears streaming down her face. It's just something my Nona says when she prays. I didn't know. "Your Nona?" Salvatore stood up, ignoring his cane. He looked 10 years younger, energized by a ghost. "What is her name?" "Sophia," Joy whispered. "Sophia Rossi." Salvatore's eyes widened. He slumped back into his chair, the blood draining from his face entirely. "Sophia," he whispered. "Impossible. She died in the fire." Enzo looked from his father to the terrified waitress. He saw the confusion in her eyes. She wasn't an assassin, but she was something far more dangerous. "Clear the restaurant," Enzo ordered, his voice cold and absolute. "But, sir," the manager stammered, having regained consciousness. "I said clear it!" Enzo roared. "Everyone out, now!" As the patrons scrambled for the exits, knocking over chairs in their haste, Enzo grabbed Joy's arm. His grip was firm, but surprisingly gentle. "You're coming with us," he said. "Am I being arrested?" she sobbed. Enzo looked at her, and for a fleeting moment, something softened in his dark eyes. "No, Piccola," he said quietly. "You're being protected. Because if my father is right about who you are, half the city will want you dead by morning." The ride to the Moretti estate was a blur of neon lights and rain-streaked windows. Joy sat in the back of the armored SUV, sandwiched between Enzo and the window. Don Salvatore sat in the front seat, staring straight ahead, his hand bandaged with a napkin from the restaurant. Silence hung thick in the air, suffocating intense. Joy's mind was racing. Sofia Rossi, that was her grandmother's name. But the fire? What fire? Her grandmother had always told her they fled Sicily because of a drought, because there was no work. She had never mentioned a fire, and she certainly never mentioned being known by the Mafia. "Stop shaking," Enzo said. His voice was low, meant only for her. "I can't," Joy whispered, hugging her arms around herself. She was still wearing her waitress uniform, a cheap black dress that offered no warmth against the chill of the leather seats. Enzo sighed. He took off his suit jacket and draped it over her shoulders. It was heavy, warm, and smelled like him. Cedar wood and danger. "We aren't going to hurt you, Joy. Not if you tell the truth." "I told you the truth," she insisted. "We'll see." The car turned off the highway and onto a private road winding up the cliffs of the Palisades. Iron gates, emblazoned with the Moretti crest. A wolf devouring a serpent swung open. The estate was a fortress. High walls, cameras everywhere, and men patrolling with assault rifles. They pulled up to the main house, a sprawling mansion that looked more like a museum than a home. Inside, the house was silent and cold. Marble floors reflected the chandeliers. Enzo guided her into a massive study lined with books. He pushed her gently into a leather armchair that cost more than her education. "Wait here," Enzo commanded. "Luca, watch the door. If she tries to leave, stop her. Don't hurt her." Enzo followed his father into the adjoining room. The heavy oak doors didn't close all the way, and Joy, trembling in Enzo's jacket, strained her ears to listen. "It cannot be her, Papa," Enzo's voice argued. "Sofia Cusano died in the Villa Rosa fire in '98. You saw the bodies." "I saw a body," Salvatore's voice replied, sounding old and weary. "Burned beyond recognition. We assumed. We wanted it to be true so the war would end." "So what? You think the matriarch of the Cusano family faked her death and has been living in Queens for 20 years, raising a granddaughter to wait tables?" That girl spoke the lingua di ombre, Lorenzo. That is a code only the inner circle of the Cusano family knew. It was their shibboleth. A way to identify each other in the dark. How else could she know it? Maybe she learned it online. Maybe she's a spy. "Look at her eyes, Lorenzo," Salvatore snapped. "Look at the shape of her jaw. She looks like him." A silence followed. A heavy, pregnant silence. "Him?" Enzo asked, his voice dropping an octave. "You mean Don Massimo?" "The butcher," Salvatore confirmed. "My greatest enemy. If that girl is Massimo Cusano's granddaughter, then by the laws of our world, she is the rightful heir to the territory we took. She is the heir to the northern docks, the union contracts, everything." Joy's heart hammered against her ribs. Massimo Cusano? The butcher? She had never heard these names. Her grandfather was a baker named Antonio, who died of a heart attack before she was born. Or so she had been told. "If anyone finds out," Enzo said slowly, "the other families, the Russians, the triads, they will use her to challenge our claim. They will rally behind her." "Exactly," Salvatore said, "which is why we have a choice. We either kill her tonight and bury the secret forever." Joy gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Or," Salvatore continued, "we bring her into the fold. We control her." "I won't kill an innocent woman, Papa," Enzo said firmly. The conviction in his voice surprised Joy. "She has no idea who she is. Look at her. She's terrified." "She is a liability. She is a civilian. Until proven otherwise, I will take responsibility for her." "You?" Salvatore scoffed. "You are soft, Lorenzo. You always have been." "I am not soft. I am smart. If we kill her and the truth comes out later, we look like cowards who killed a girl to keep power. If we keep her close, we can find out if the old witch Sofia is really alive, and if she is, we can use the girl as leverage." There was a long pause. "Fine," Salvatore grunted. "She stays in the East Wing. No phone, no internet. She speaks to no one but you and me. Find out what she knows." "And Lorenzo?" "Yes, Papa?" "Don't get attached. If she is a Cusano, she has treachery in her blood. It will only be a matter of time before she tries to stick a knife in your back." The door to the study swung open. Enzo stepped out. His face was unreadable, his jaw set tight. He looked at Joy, huddled in his jacket, looking small and fragile. He walked over to the minibar, poured a glass of amber liquid, and downed it in one shot. Then he turned to her. "You're staying here," he stated. It wasn't a question. "I can't." Joy stood up, her legs wobbly. "My grandmother, she needs her medicine. She's alone." Enzo crossed the room in 2 strides. He stopped inches from her. Up close, his eyes weren't just cold, they were tired. "Your grandmother is not who you think she is, Joy. And if she is who my father thinks she is, then she is the most dangerous woman in New York." "That's insane! She's an 80-year-old woman with arthritis!" "We sent a team to your apartment," Enzo said casually, as if discussing the weather. "What?" Joy screamed. "No! Leave her alone!" "They aren't there to hurt her. They are there to bring her here. If she is innocent, she has nothing to fear. But we need answers. And until we get them, you are my guest." "Guest?" Joy laughed hysterically. "I'm a prisoner." Enzo stepped closer, towering over her. He reached out, his fingers brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. The touch sent a jolt of electricity down her spine that had nothing to do with fear. "A prisoner goes to the dungeon," Enzo murmured, his voice dropping to a husky whisper. "You are going to the master suite. And I suggest you get some rest, Principessa. Because tomorrow, we are going to dig up the ghosts of your past, and I promise you, you won't like what we find." He turned to leave, but stopped at the door. "And Joy?" She looked up, eyes wide. "Keep the jacket." He closed the door, locking her in. Joy collapsed back into the chair, clutching the charcoal fabric that smelled like the man who was now her captor, and, strangely, her only protector. Outside the window the storm raged on, but it was nothing compared to the storm that was about to break within the walls of the Moretti estate. 2 hours later, the heavy mahogany doors of the library swung open. Joy had chewed her fingernails down to the quick. She jumped to her feet as Enzo entered. He looked grimmer than before, his tie loosened, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle and covered in faint scars. "Is she here?" Joy demanded, rushing toward him. "Is Nona here?" Enzo didn't answer immediately. He stepped aside, and Joy's heart stopped. Luca, the massive bodyguard, wheeled a chair into the room. In it sat Sofia Rossi. She looked exactly as Joy had left her that morning, wrapped in a knitted shawl, clutching her rosary, looking frail and confused. "Joy?" Sophia's voice was a tremulous quaver. "What is happening? Who are these men? They broke down the door." "Nona," Joy fell to her knees beside the wheelchair, grasping her grandmother's cold, wrinkled hands. "I'm so sorry. It's all a mistake. I said something stupid at work and—" "Enough." A voice boomed from the other side of the room. Don Salvatore stepped out of the shadows of the fireplace. He held a glass of whiskey, his eyes fixed on the old woman in the wheelchair. "Cut the act, Sofia," Salvatore said, his voice dripping with venom. "The theater is closed." Joy turned on the Don, fury igniting in her chest. "Don't talk to her like that. She's sick. She has a heart condition." Salvatore laughed. It was a dry, rasping sound. "She has a heart of black ice. Isn't that right?" "Donna Sofia?" Joy looked back at her grandmother, expecting fear, expecting confusion. Instead, she saw a spine straighten. Slowly, deliberately, the trembling in Sophia's hands stopped. The confused haze in her eyes evaporated, replaced by a gaze as sharp and hard as a diamond cutter. The sweet, senile old lady melted away, and underneath sat a queen in exile. Sophia didn't look at Joy. She looked straight at Salvatore. "You got old, Toto," Sophia said. Her voice wasn't shaking anymore. It was strong, imperious, and thick, with the accent of the old country. And sloppy. Your boys made a mess of my hallway. Joy gasped, recoiling as if she'd been burned. She scrambled back, looking at the woman she thought she knew. Nona? Sophia finally glanced at her granddaughter. The look wasn't unkind, but it was devoid of the pity Joy was used to. It was the look of a general assessing a soldier. Get up off the floor, Joy. You are a Cusano. We do not kneel for Morettis. Cusano? Joy whispered. So, it's true? Everything is true, Sophia said, standing up from the wheelchair. She pushed it away with a disdainful shove. She didn't need it. She walked toward the fireplace, matching Salvatore's height with sheer presence. My husband was Massimo Cusano. I was his consigliere in all but name. And you, my sweet child, are the rightful heir to the 5 boroughs. Enzo watched from the corner, his hand hovering near the gun in his shoulder holster. He was watching Joy. She looked like her world had just shattered. Why? Joy's voice cracked. Why lie to me? For 20 years? To keep you alive, Sophia snapped. When the Morettis burned our home, when they slaughtered your parents, I took you and ran. I became a nobody, a washerwoman, a ghost. I scrubbed floors so you wouldn't have to scrub blood off your hands. I taught you to be invisible, because in our world, the tall poppy gets cut. She turned to Salvatore. But I see you couldn't leave well enough alone. You had to bring her here. She revealed herself, Salvatore roared. She spoke the lingua di ombre to me. In my own restaurant. Sophia sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. I taught her the old blessings. I didn't think she'd use them on you. It is done, Salvatore said. The word is out. The staff heard it. The other families will hear it. The truce is broken. There was never a truce, Toto, Sophia smiled coldly. Only a pause. I should kill you both right now, Salvatore growled. Finish what we started in, 98. You could, Sophia agreed, but then you'd lose the northern docks. The room went silent. Excuse me. Enzo spoke up for the first time, stepping into the light. Sophia turned her gaze to the younger Moretti. Hello, Lorenzo. You look like your mother. A shame she didn't live to see you grow up. Enzo's jaw tightened. Watch your mouth. The deeds to the northern docks, Sophia continued, ignoring the threat. The union contracts, the shipping routes, they were never in Massimo's safe. They were in a trust. A blind trust that activates only upon the biometric scan of a living heir of the Cusano bloodline, specifically a female heir. She pointed a withered finger at Joy. Her. Salvatore froze. The northern docks were the golden goose of New York. Billions of dollars in shipping containers flowed through them. The Morettis controlled the streets, but without the legal deeds to the docks, they were just thugs collecting protection money. If you kill her, Sophia said softly, the trust dissolves and the deeds go to the state. You lose everything. If you keep her alive, well, she controls the port. So, Enzo said, his voice calculating, she's a bargaining chip. She is a partner, Sophia corrected, or an enemy. It is up to you. Joy felt sick. They were discussing her life like she was a piece of real estate. I'm not doing it, Joy said. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the tension. Everyone turned to her. I'm not a partner. I'm not an heir. I'm a waitress, Joy said, shaking. I just want to go home. I want to forget I ever met any of you. Sophia walked over to her, grabbing her chin. You cannot go home, Kara. Your apartment is likely burning as we speak. The Russians, the Irish, they will all want you. To use you against the Morettis or to kill you to spite them. You are in the game now. You either play or you die. Joy looked at Enzo, searching for something. A lifeline. Enzo looked back. She's right, Joy. We can't let you leave. Not now. So I am a prisoner, Joy said, tears spilling over. For now, Enzo said. I'll show you to your room. A real room, not an interrogation cell. He gestured to the door. Joy pulled away from her grandmother's touch. She felt betrayed by the one person she loved. She walked past Enzo, head down, defeated. As they walked down the long, silent corridor, Enzo didn't speak. He led her to a suite at the end of the east wing. It was luxurious, with a balcony overlooking the cliffs, but the windows were reinforced glass, and the door had a heavy electronic lock. "I'll have some clothes sent up," Enzo said, lingering in the doorway, "and food." "I'm not hungry," Joy said, turning her back to him. "You need to eat. You need strength." "For what?" She spun around, anger flaring. "To be a pawn in your war?" "To survive it," Enzo said seriously. He took a step into the room. "Listen to me, Joy. My father, he sees numbers. He sees territory. But I see you. I know you didn't ask for this." "Then let me go." "I can't. If I let you go, you'll be dead in an hour. And," he hesitated, looking away, "and I don't want that on my conscience." "Is that the only reason?" Joy challenged him. Enzo looked at her. The air between them crackled. He was the wolf, and she was the lamb. But for a moment, the wolf looked like he wanted to be tamed. "Get some sleep, Joy," he said roughly. He stepped out and closed the door. She heard the heavy thud of the lock engaging. Joy walked to the window and looked out at the storm. She touched the glass. Cold. Just like this new world she had been thrust into. "Okay, Nona," she whispered to the reflection in the glass. "You want me to play the game? I'll play. But I'm playing by my own rules." For 3 days, Joy was a ghost in the Moretti mansion. She refused to eat with the family. She refused to speak to her grandmother, who had been given a guest suite down the hall. Joy spent her time in the library, reading up on the history she had been denied. She read old newspapers about the mob wars of the 90s. She read about the butcher Cusano. She read about the innocents caught in the crossfire. Enzo was her shadow. Wherever she went, he was there. Leaning against a doorframe, watching her read, walking 5 paces behind her in the garden. He didn't say much, but his presence was a constant weight, heavy yet strangely grounding. On the 4th night, the tension broke. It was the night of the Cena di Fiducia, the dinner of trust. Salvatore had invited the capos of the 5 families to the estate. It was a power move, a way to show them that rumors of the Moretti weakness were exaggerated, and to subtly introduce the existence of the Cusano heir without handing her over. "You have to attend," Enzo told her. He was standing in her room holding a garment bag. "I'm not going down there to be paraded like a prize poodle," Joy said from the balcony. "It's not a request," Enzo said. He unzipped the bag. Inside was a dress of deep crimson silk. "If you don't show your face, they will think we killed you. If they think we killed you, they will attack us for hoarding the key. You need to be seen, alive and unharmed." "And if I refuse?" "Then my father drags you down there in handcuffs. I'm trying to spare you that indignity." Joy looked at the dress. It was beautiful. It was the color of blood. "Fine," she said, "but I'm not doing it for your father. I'm doing it because I'm sick of hiding in this room." "Good enough," Enzo said. He placed the dress on the bed. "I'll be outside the door. You have an hour." When Joy emerged an hour later, Enzo actually stopped breathing for a second. The dress hugged her curves, the slit revealing a long expanse of leg. She wore her hair up, exposing her neck. She looked regal. She looked dangerous. "Don't stare," she murmured, walking past him. "It's rude." Enzo cleared his throat, adjusting his tie. "Right. Stay close to me. Do not accept drinks from anyone but me or Luca. Do not go to the bathroom alone." "Romantic," she deadpanned. The dining hall was filled with smoke and men in expensive suits. The air smelled of cigars and roasted lamb. When Joy entered on Enzo's arm, conversation stopped. Salvatore sat at the head of the table. To his right, an empty chair. To his left, Sophia, looking like the Queen Mother in black lace. "Gentlemen," Salvatore announced, spreading his arms, "may I present Joy Vance, the granddaughter of my old friend Massimo." A ripple of murmurs went through the room. Men looked at her with hungry, calculating eyes. Joy felt like a gazelle in a pit of hyenas. Enzo pulled out the chair to Salvatore's right. She sat. Enzo didn't sit. He stood directly behind her chair, his hands clasped, scanning the room. The dinner was an ordeal. Men asked her prying questions. "Do you remember the old days? Do you have the key? Are you married?" Joy answered with monosyllables, maintaining a cold, detached mask she had learned from watching Enzo. Halfway through the second course, a man named Don Russo, the head of the New Jersey faction, stood up. He was a coarse man with a stain on his tie. "This is a lovely show, Salvatore," Russo sneered. "But a girl? You expect us to believe this? Waitress holds the keys to the kingdom? I think you're stalling." "I think the Cusano line ended in that fire, and you hired an actress." "Careful, Russo," Enzo warned, his voice a low growl. "I want proof," Russo demanded. "I want to hear her speak the lingua." Salvatore looked at Joy. "Go ahead, child. Satisfy his curiosity." Joy looked at Russo. She looked at the wineglass in his hand. She remembered the fear she felt that first night. She didn't feel fear now. She felt power. She stood up. "Si lo lupo dormi, la pecora balla, ma stasera lo lupo è sveglio." If the wolf sleeps, the sheep dances. But tonight, the wolf is awake. Russo's face paled. It was perfect dialect. "Satisfied?" Enzo asked, smirking. Russo grunted and sat down. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Enzo's hand was on Joy's shoulder instantly. "Luca, check the breaker." "It's just the storm, boss," Luca said into his earpiece. "Power lines are—" Crack. The sound wasn't thunder. It was the high-pitched shatter of the reinforced window behind Salvatore. "Down!" Enzo screamed. He didn't dive for his father. He dove for Joy. He tackled her to the ground, shielding her body with his own as the room erupted into chaos. Gunfire shredded the air. It wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from the balcony. Men in black tactical gear were rappelling down from the roof. "Inside job." Salvatore roared, flipping the heavy oak table for cover. "We have a rat! Defend the perimeter!" Joy was pressed into the Persian rug, Enzo's heavy weight crushing her. She could feel his heart pounding against her back. She smelled the gunpowder on him as he drew his weapon. "Stay down!" Enzo yelled at her. He popped up, firing 2 controlled shots. 2 of the attackers dropped. "Enzo!" Joy screamed as she saw a red laser dot dance across Enzo's chest. He didn't see it. He was reloading. Without thinking, Joy grabbed his lapel and yanked him down. A bullet whizzed past his ear, embedding itself in the wall where his head had been a millisecond before. Enzo looked at her, eyes wide. She had just saved his life. "We have to move," he shouted. "They're flanking us." "My grandmother," Joy cried, looking for Sophia. Sophia was already moving. The old woman had kicked off her heels and was behind the overturned table, loading a revolver she had pulled from somewhere. "Go with Enzo," Sophia yelled, firing a shot that took a mercenary in the knee. "I'll cover you." "I am not leaving her," Joy protested. "Move." Enzo grabbed Joy by the waist and hauled her up. He dragged her toward the kitchen, firing blindly behind them to suppress the attackers. They burst into the kitchen. Staff were screaming, hiding under stainless steel counters. The service exit, Enzo ordered, "Go!" They ran out the back door into the pouring rain. The storm was deafening. The estate grounds were a war zone. Security guards were exchanging fire with shadows in the trees. "The garage is too far," Enzo panted, wiping rain from his eyes. "We have to go to the boathouse." They sprinted across the wet lawn, slipping on the mud. Joy's heels were gone. She was running barefoot. They reached the boathouse at the edge of the cliffs. Enzo kicked the door open and shoved her inside. He slammed the heavy bolt shut. "Are you hit?" he asked, grabbing her shoulders and checking her frantically. His hands were everywhere. Her arms, her waist, her face. "I'm fine," she gasped. "You?" "I'm fine." He stopped. He looked at her. They were both soaked to the bone, adrenaline pumping through their veins. "You pulled me down," Enzo said, disbelief coloring his voice. "You saw the laser." I guess." "Why?" "What do you mean, why?" "You hate me. I'm your jailer." Joy looked at him. Water dripped from his dark hair onto his forehead. "I don't want you to die." Enzo stared at her for a long moment. The sounds of gunfire outside seemed to fade away. The intensity in his eyes shifted from combat to something else entirely, something raw. "We aren't safe here," he whispered, but he didn't move away. "That attack, they knew exactly where we were sitting. They bypassed the perimeter sensors. Someone deactivated the grid." "Who?" "I don't know, but whoever it is, they want us both dead. You for the key, and me for standing in the way." He reached out and touched her cheek. His hand was warm against her cold skin. "From this moment on," Enzo swore, "I am not your jailer, Joy. I am your shield. I swear it on my mother's grave. No one touches you." Joy shivered, but not from the cold. "And what if I don't want a shield? What if I want a weapon?" Enzo smiled. It was the first real smile she had ever seen on him. It was terrifying and beautiful. "Then I'll teach you how to shoot." The boat engine roared to life, a guttural growl that was barely audible over the crashing thunder. It was a sleek, black cigarette boat docked inside the boathouse, kept for emergencies exactly like this one. Enzo maneuvered them out onto the Hudson River. The water was choppy, black waves slamming against the hull. Joy huddled in the passenger seat, shivering violently. It wasn't just the cold, it was the adrenaline crash. She had almost died. She had saved a life. The world she woke up in this morning no longer existed. "Where are we going?" she yelled over the wind. "Safe house," Enzo shouted back, eyes scanning the dark shoreline for pursuers. "In Brooklyn, off the books. Not even my father knows about it." "Why not your father?" "Because someone let those men in, Joy. Until I know who, trust no one." They docked an hour later at a derelict pier in Red Hook. Enzo killed the engine and covered the boat with a tarp that made it look like a pile of trash. He led her through a maze of shipping containers to an unassuming brick building that looked like an abandoned warehouse. Inside, however, it was a fortress. Reinforced doors, blackout curtains, and a fully stocked armory. Enzo locked the door behind them and immediately collapsed onto a dusty sofa, wincing. "You're hurt," Joy said, rushing to him. "Just a graze." Enzo grunted, clutching his side. He moved his hand away. His white dress shirt was stained crimson at the ribs. "Sit still," Joy commanded. The shyness was gone. Panic had burned it away. "Where's the first aid kit?" Enzo pointed to a cabinet. Joy retrieved it, her hands surprisingly steady. She had spent years patching up her grandmother's scrapes and managing her medications. She knew how to care for people. She unbuttoned his shirt, peeling the wet fabric away from his skin. The wound was a jagged slice across his ribs. A bullet had grazed him. It wasn't deep, but it was bleeding freely. "This is going to sting," she warned, uncapping a bottle of antiseptic. "Do it." She cleaned the wound. Enzo hissed through his teeth, his muscles seizing under her touch. She could feel the heat radiating off him. Up close, stripped of his suit and his armor, he looked human, vulnerable. "Why did you save me?" Enzo asked quietly, watching her face as she worked. "You could have let the laser find its mark. You would have been free." Joy finished taping the gauze. She sat back on her heels, meeting his gaze. "And then what? I'd be alone in a room full of men who want me dead. You're the only one who looks at me like a person, Enzo. Not a paycheck, not a key." Enzo's eyes darkened. He reached out, his rough hand cupping her cheek. "You are not a key, Joy. You are a fire. I saw you tonight. When you stood up to Russo, you were magnificent." The air in the room shifted. It became thick, charged with the same electricity that was in the storm outside. Enzo leaned in. Joy didn't pull away. Their lips met, a desperate tasting collision. It wasn't gentle. It was fueled by survival instinct and suppressed desire. Enzo groaned, pulling her closer, his hands tangling in her damp hair. Joy kissed him back with equal force, pouring all her fear and confusion into the contact. For a moment, there was no Mafia, no Cusano legacy, just the heat of his body and the taste of whiskey and rain on his tongue. Enzo broke the kiss, breathing hard, his forehead resting against hers. "If we keep doing this," he whispered, his voice rough, "I won't be able to stop, and we need to focus." Joy nodded, breathless. "Focus on what?" Enzo stood up, wincing slightly. and walked to the wall of weapons. He pulled a matte black 9mm pistol from the rack. He checked the magazine, racked the slide, and turned to her. "On making sure you never have to depend on me to save you again," he said. The lesson lasted until dawn. The basement of the warehouse was soundproofed. Enzo was a demanding teacher. He didn't pamper her. He made her hold the gun until her arms shook. He corrected her stance, his hands molding her body into a weapon. "Feet shoulder-width apart," he instructed. Standing behind her, his chest pressed against her back. "Lean into it. You control the recoil. It doesn't control you." "I can't," Joy said, lowering the gun. "It's too heavy." "Your life is heavier," Enzo whispered in her ear. "Imagine the man who wants to hurt your Nona is standing in front of that target. Imagine Russo. Imagine the person who betrayed us." Joy raised the gun again. She narrowed her eyes. She pictured the smug face of Don Russo. She pictured the fear in her grandmother's eyes. Bang! The shot went wide. "Again," Enzo said. "Bang! Closer. Breathe, Joy. Squeeze. Don't pull." Bang! Center mass. Joy lowered the gun, exhaling a shaky breath. She looked at the target. She had done it. "Good," Enzo said, taking the gun from her. "You're a natural. It's in the blood." "I hate that," Joy murmured. "I hate that violence comes easily to me." "It's not violence," Enzo corrected. "It's defense. In our world, peace is just the time between reloading." Suddenly, a burner phone on the table buzzed. It was a single text message. Enzo picked it up. His face went pale. "What is it?" Joy asked. "It's a coordinate," Enzo said, his voice turning to ice. "And a photo." He turned the phone around. It was a picture of Sophia, tied to a chair in what looked like a shipping container. She looked battered but alive. "Nona!" Joy screamed. "They have her," Enzo said. "They must have grabbed her during the chaos at the estate." "We have to go get her!" Joy ran to the door. "Wait!" Enzo grabbed her arm. "It's a trap, Joy, obviously. They know I'm with you. They're using her to draw us out." "I don't care." Joy pulled free, her eyes blazing. "That is my grandmother. If you won't take me, I'll go alone." Enzo looked at her. He saw the resolve. The shy waitress was dead. The Mafia princess was born. "We go together," Enzo said, holstering his weapon. He grabbed a tactical vest and threw it to her. "Put this on. We're going to war." The coordinates led to the wildest part of the Bronx, a scrapyard known as the Iron Graveyard. It was a maze of rusted cars stacked 3 stories high, twisting metal corridors where shadows stretched long and deep. The rain had stopped, leaving behind a thick, gray fog that clung to the ground. Enzo and Joy moved silently. Enzo took point, his assault rifle raised. Joy followed, the 9mm tight in her hand. Her heart was hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs, but her hands were steady. "Stay low," Enzo signaled. They reached a clearing in the center of the yard. There, under a solitary floodlight, sat Sophia. She was bound to a car seat that had been ripped from a vehicle. Standing around her were 6 men. And in the center, smoking a cigarette, was Luca. Joy gasped. Enzo's hand tightened on his weapon until his knuckles turned white. "Luca," Enzo whispered. "I knew it." He was the one who checked the breaker. Joy realized, horror dawning on her. He cut the lights. "Come out, Enzo," Luca shouted, his voice echoing off the rusted metal. "I know you're here. I can smell your cologne." Enzo stepped out from behind a stack of crushed sedans. He didn't lower his gun. Joy stayed hidden in the shadows, as Enzo had instructed. "Why, Luca?" Enzo called out, walking slowly into the light. "My father treated you like a son." Luca laughed. It was a bitter, ugly sound. "Your father treated me like a dog. Luca, fetch. Luca, kill. Luca, take a bullet. And for what? Peanuts? While you sit in your ivory tower." "So Russo bought you," Enzo spat. "How much was your loyalty worth?" "Enough to buy my own island," Luca smirked. He pressed the barrel of his gun against Sophia's temple. "Now, drop the rifle, Enzo, or the old witch paints the pavement." Enzo hesitated. Do it, Luca screamed. Enzo slowly crouched and placed the rifle on the wet ground. He kicked it away. Good. Now, where is the girl? Luca scanned the darkness. Joy, come out, sweetheart. Uncle Luca has a present for you. Joy's breath hitched. She was 40 feet away, hidden behind a tire rim. She had a clear line of sight on Luca, but her hands were shaking. It's not paper targets, she told herself. This is Luca. He bought me coffee. He smiled at me. She ran. Enzo lied smoothly. She took the boat and headed for Canada. I came alone. Liar, Luca sneered. She wouldn't leave Granny. Come out, Joy, or I shoot the old lady in the leg. 1, 2. No. Joy stepped out, her gun raised. I'm here. Luca grinned. There she is, the billion-dollar waitress. Let her go, Luca, Joy said, her voice trembling but loud. You want me? I'm here. Swap me for her. Joy, no, Sophia groaned through her gag. Such a noble gesture, Luca mocked. But here's the thing. Russo doesn't need the grandmother anymore. He just needs you. And he needs you broken. Luca signaled to the men. Grab her, kill Enzo, and kill the old woman. Time seemed to slow down. One of the mercenaries raised his gun toward Enzo. Enzo didn't wait. He pulled a backup knife from his boot and threw it. The blade buried itself in the mercenary's throat. The man dropped, his gun firing into the air. Chaos erupted. Kill them! Luca roared, ducking behind Sophia. Enzo dove for cover, rolling behind a car chassis as bullets chewed up the dirt where he had been standing. Joy was exposed. A man with a scar across his face charged at her, a knife in his hand. Joy froze. The training. Breathe. Squeeze. She lifted the gun. She didn't close her eyes. Bang. Bang. 2 shots to the chest. The man crumpled forward, sliding to her feet. Joy stared at the body. She had just killed a man. There was no vomit, no fainting. Just a cold, hard clarity. This is who I am, she thought. I am a Cusano. She spun around. Enzo was pinned down by 3 men. He was outgunned. Joy flanked them. She moved through the maze of cars like a ghost. She came up on their side. Bang, bang, bang. She took them by surprise. 2 dropped. The 3rd spun around, firing wildly. A bullet grazed Joy's arm, searing like a hot poker, but she didn't stop. She returned fire, dropping him. Now, it was just Luca. Luca had dragged Sophia behind a van. He was using her as a human shield, his gun pressed to her head. Enzo stood up, his suit muddy, blood dripping from a cut on his forehead. He and Joy formed a triangle with Luca. It's over, Luca, Enzo yelled. You have nowhere to go. I have the leverage, Luca screamed, sweat pouring down his face. He looked frantic. He knew he was losing. I'll do it! I swear to God! Joy looked at her grandmother. Sophia's eyes were locked on Joy. She nodded slightly. Do it, Luca, Joy said softly. She took a step forward. Stay back. You said I was worth billions, Joy said, lowering her gun slightly. If you kill her, Enzo kills you. If you kill me, Russo kills you for losing the key. You're a dead man walking, Luca. Luca blinked. The logic pierced his panic. But, Joy continued, her voice hypnotic, if you let her go, maybe I let you walk away. You're lying, Luca spat. Try me. I'm not a Moretti. I'm a waitress. I don't have the stomach for execution. Luca hesitated. His grip on Sophia loosened just a fraction. He looked at Joy, trying to gauge her sincerity. That fraction was all Sophia needed. The old woman slammed her elbow backward into Luca's gut with shocking force. As he doubled over, she stomped on his instep. Luca howled, stumbling back. Sophia threw herself to the ground. Now! Enzo roared. But Joy was already moving. She didn't shoot Luca. She didn't want to give him the mercy of a quick death. She sprinted forward and pistol-whipped him across the face. Luca went down hard. Before he could raise his gun, Joy was standing over him. Her boot pressed against his throat. her gun barrel pressed to his forehead. "You're right, Luca," Joy hissed, staring down into his terrified eyes. "I'm not a Moretti, but I am a Cusano, and we don't let traitors walk." "Joy, wait," Enzo said, stepping up beside her. Joy looked at Enzo. Her eyes were wild. "He tried to kill Nona." "I know," Enzo said. He placed his hand over hers on the gun. "But we need him alive. We need to know where Russo is. We need to know how to end this." Joy's finger hovered over the trigger. She wanted to pull it. Every instinct screamed at her to finish it. Slowly, agonizingly, she lifted the gun. "Talk," she commanded Luca, "or I start removing pieces of you." Luca sobbed, broken. "The warehouse. Pier 4. That's where the server is. That's where they're waiting for the transfer signal." "The transfer signal?" Enzo asked. "The deeds," Luca gasped. "Russo has a hacker. They're trying to bypass the biometric lock, but they need your retinal scan to override the failsafe. They were going to bring you there." Enzo looked at Joy. "If they crack that server, your family legacy is gone. Russo takes the docks." "Then we go to Pier 4, Joy said, holstering her gun. She helped her grandmother up. "Are you okay, Nona?" Sophia brushed the dirt off her shawl. She looked at Joy with a mixture of pride and sorrow. "I am fine, Piccola, but you have changed." "I had to," Joy said. She looked at Enzo. Enzo nodded. "Let's finish this. Tonight, the Morettis and the Cusanos ride together." "What about him?" Joy pointed at Luca. Enzo didn't hesitate. He knocked Luca unconscious with the butt of his rifle. "We leave him for the rats. We have a war to win." Pier 4 was a cavernous mouth of steel and shadow. Inside, Don Russo stood by a portable server bank, flanked by a dozen men. He smiled as Joy walked in, hands raised, Enzo a defined shadow at her back. "Smart girl," Russo sneered, gesturing to the retina scanner. "Give me the docs, and you live." Joy stepped up to the machine. She felt the cold laser scan her eye. The screen flashed green. "Access granted," the robotic voice announced. "Transferring assets." Russo laughed, a sound of pure greed. "Finally, the northern docks are mine." "To the Federal Bureau of Investigation," the voice finished. Russo froze. "What?" "My grandmother wasn't just a mob wife," Joy said, her voice echoing in the silence. "She was a patriot, the poison pill protocol. If the assets are accessed under duress, the deeds are automatically emailed to the FBI's Organized Crime Division. You didn't just steal the docs, Russo. You just emailed a confession to the feds." "Kill them!" Russo screamed, veins bulging in his neck. But the warehouse doors exploded inward. "Not today!" Don Salvatore's voice roared. The Moretti cavalry had arrived. The firefight was brief and brutal. Enzo moved like a blur, shielding Joy as he advanced on Russo. Russo fumbled for his weapon, but Enzo was faster. A single shot rang out, and the rival Don fell, his reign ending on the dirty concrete of the pier he tried to steal. When the smoke cleared, Salvatore walked over, leaning on his cane. He looked at Joy, then at the transfer complete screen. "You gave away the docks," Salvatore said, stunned. "Billions of dollars, gone." "I gave away the target on my back," Joy corrected, holstering her weapon. She looked at Enzo. "And I bought our freedom." Salvatore looked at his son. He saw the way Enzo stood next to her, not as a superior, but as a partner. The old Don sighed, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. "Perhaps that is a fair trade." Loasi was busier than ever. Joy moved through the dining room, not in a waitress uniform, but in a tailored silk dress. She wasn't serving wine. She was greeting guests. She stopped at table 1. Enzo sat there, sipping the 82 Barolo. He looked up, his dark eyes softening as she approached. "Table is to your liking, Mr. Moretti?" she teased. "It's perfect," Enzo said, taking her hand and kissing the knuckles. "But the owner is distracting me." Joy smiled. A smile that was no longer shy, but radiant and dangerous. The waitress was gone. The Queen of New York had taken her throne. And that is the story of Joy Vance, the shy waitress who accidentally started a war and ended up ruling the city. It just goes to show, you never know who is pouring your coffee. They might just be the most dangerous person in the room. If you enjoyed this Mafia romance saga, smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Comment below. Would you have given up the billions to save your freedom, or would you have kept the money? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a story. We have a new thriller dropping next week that you won't want to miss. Thanks for watching.